welcome back to the Daughter Arise channel. I hope that you're all doing well this day and that you're having a lovely weekend. So today I wanted to do a video on 5 things that do not help survivors of abuse in the aftermath. And what I mean by that is things like people's comments, things that people may do that really has a negative impact on the person who has been through sexual abuse, being able to move forward with their life and heal from the trauma that it has caused. Now, this is based upon my own experiences and experiences of those that I work with. And I really think it's important that I kind of share with you, if you're somebody who knows a family member, a friend that has been through sexual abuse, some sayings, some words that can really have a negative impact on them. And also as well, I will be doing another video on 5 things that helps to support survivors of abuse. But I think this is an area that we need to discuss and need to talk about. And I believe it might be helpful to you, or maybe kind of help you to think a little more maybe before interacting and speaking with somebody who you know that has been through abuse. The first thing that doesn't help survivors of abuse is blaming. Now, by that I mean that the person who's been through abuse has come to you, and because of lack of understanding, you blame them for what has happened to them. First of all, a child can never be responsible for the actions of an adult. Let's just get that very, very clear. It doesn't really matter about family dynamics, or if the child was outgoing, or even if the child was running around naked in the house. There is no way a child can ever be responsible for the actions of an adult. Now, people who commit sexual abuse, these perpetrators, lack self-control, and already they are opportunists, and they take the opportunity to do whatever they will do. And it's really unfair not to blame the victim for something that he or she can never understand as a child. I have worked with survivors, and I've heard instances where, especially in African and Caribbean cultures, where an adult as a child was told they were too flighty, if they weren't running around the house in their underwear or their nightdress. What has this got to do with the fact that this adult has committed this type of crime against this child? It doesn't help the child, it doesn't help the survivor to be blamed for something that was not in their control. It was the adult's responsibility to control themselves, which they haven't done. Now, I can understand that maybe, the shock of being told that by a loved one or a friend can cause you to have a knee-jerk reaction to the disclosure, but they can never be responsible for what has happened. This is something that we need to discuss, because what a survivor needs, what somebody who's been through sexual abuse needs in the aftermath, is just somebody to at first listen to them. And that is really important. Blaming them for what has happened only compounds the already hurtful feelings that they are experiencing, and makes them feel shameful, makes them feel guilty, like they have done something wrong. Because that is one of the fundamental things what stops survivors from speaking out, is the fear of being blamed for what has happened to them. So what I would say is, do not blame the person, do not blame your loved one for what has happened to them. Instead, as hard as it is, try and listen to them. This one had to be included in this list. I was told it so many times on my journey from, I would say, from 17 upwards to my early 30s. You should be over it by now. Now, what does that actually mean, you should be over it by now? First of all, a lot of people that say you should be over it by now, in the first instance, do not even have the knowledge or understanding to know how sexual abuse has an impact on an adult survivor. It's not really helpful to say to somebody you should be over it by now. So I had my pain and I was going through what I was going through, sometimes visibly upset, sometimes visibly down, depressed, and people with their unhelpful comments would say you should be over it by now. Anybody that has been through any type of abuse has a period, a journey where they have to come to first acknowledge what has happened to them, to start to deal with the issues that it's left behind, and three, start to be able to come to terms and heal from their past. It is not an overnight process. Now, as many of you know, I have shared many times on my blogs and even in my videos that my journey from devastation to restoration has been a 33-year journey. I'm talking about from 9 years old to my age. I'm now 40 years old and I am still on that journey. It has been one of discovery. It has been one of self-acceptance. There are so many layers once you have made once you've acknowledged that you've actually been through sexual abuse. There's so many layers, so many different areas that you have to deal with. So having that general term, you should be over it by now, when you might not have even an awareness or understanding of it, really doesn't help the survivor. Now, patience is required, patience, and I think that that can only be found with people who really are interested in loving you for you, and walking beside you and understanding that you've experienced a trauma that will take time to heal. People can necessarily, I think, understand it better when they have the education and tools to be able to know the impact of it. And people, I think, can understand it a little bit more, say for instance with victims of rape. Maybe, I'm not sure if all people are able to kind of understand it a bit better, but trauma takes time. People who have been through been victims of rape, I've been a victim of rape as well. These traumas take time to be able to process, to acknowledge, to process, and to heal from. So instead of saying to somebody, you should be over it by now, think about the question maybe you should ask yourself is, do I have the patience to be able to bear with this person who I like, who I love, who I care about, whilst they discover who they are and come to terms with the trauma so they can go past on their journey? If you cannot help them, if you cannot bear with them, then help them try and find somebody that can. There are plenty of organisations out there like Daughter Arise, like NAPAC. There's loads of organisations that can actually help them to kind of understand their journey. So that would be my word for you today. There's a saying that goes, if you don't have anything nice, helpful, pleasant, supportive, I'm just including all these different kind of terms to say, then maybe it's better not to say anything at all, because it will only serve to compound and make the hurt and devastation worse for the survivor. Okay, so not listening. Somebody has come to you and said to you they've been through sexual abuse, and you're adding your own opinion, your own narrative over how you think that they should deal with it. These things do not help. Not listening, dismissing what they're saying, and trivializing and minimalizing their experience is extremely, extremely hurtful and unhelpful. And depending on how somebody does that really will impact on whether that person will ever open up again. It's important to understand that when somebody has been through abuse, it takes courage for them to be able to open up in the first place. And for them, it is taking a risk because they have had their trust destroyed. And for them to step forward in courage to say to somebody, this is what's happened to me, only for it to be, for them to be talked over, for their experience to be minimalized or trivialized, will have a long-lasting impact on that person. I have read of stories of survivors, and I have dealt with survivors where they tried to open up to a family member just once, and because of the response that they got, they just completely didn't open up again and thought to themselves, well, I'm just going to suffer in silence. Now, we all know that, well, I don't know if you know, but I know as somebody that has been through sexual abuse, when you are suffering inside and you don't have an outlet, a healthy outlet for it, you will end up doing things and making decisions which will have a detrimental effect on your long-lasting well-being. So it's important that you listen. You may not understand. It may not be, it may make you feel uncomfortable to hear what they have to say. And there's ways that you can kind of deal with that in a measured response. So if somebody's, one of the things as a survivor that I did very early on in my story is that I was so desperate to get out everything that had happened to me. I didn't realize for a lot of people it was actually overwhelming and extremely upsetting for them to hear it, and it's very uncomfortable for people to hear. So I have learned, from before I did my book, when I was speaking to people, and it started for me building trust in a safe environment, to just kind of speak to people and not overwhelm them with information. So if somebody's trying to talk to you about sexual abuse and they're giving what you might find too much details, and that's understandable, it's not really a pleasant thing to hear, but it's important to listen. That is the most important thing. You can listen and then try and say, I'm really sorry you've had that experience. I don't pretend to understand what you've been through. And try and just interject it in little ways like that, but at proper points within that conversation. If it's something you feel that you want that person to be able to share more with you about, just say to them, thank you for sharing that with me. I know that might not have been, that's probably been hard for you to do. Could we speak about this in more detail at another time? Or could, we meet up for a coffee or something in a way that is nice, in a way that is caring. One of the things that I found is that people would become overwhelmed because of the content, but just having that measured response and and showing empathy really will go a long way. And I think that's one of the things that you could probably use to help somebody who has been through abuse. Never underestimate the power of a listening ear. A lot of the time with people who've been through abuse, I found that never having the voice to be heard and then finding your voice and being heard is such an empowering thing. And just being able to just listen to that person and allowing them to speak really does a lot for their confidence and a lot for their ability to start the process of healing. So please listen, do not minimize their experience or trivialize it because you don't understand it. Just try and be there for them. Now, this one is one that I, again, have had plenty of experience in, and I still get it today. It has helped people to nearly destroy my life, destroy my family's life, and destroy me as a person. Now, when you have gone through sexual abuse and you are vulnerable and your vulnerability is on display, people seem to think that they are like, I would call, vampires. They immediately pounce on that and try and suck you dry because you have a weakness. Now, it's important here to understand that although my issues or challenges or vulnerabilities may be more on display than yours, doesn't make you a better person than me. And it is the same for other survivors of abuse. You may have people around you in your life, they may party too much, they may drink too much, they may be a bit outspoken, they may have anger issues. And because you haven't been through or you haven't dealt with issues like that, doesn't make you a better person than that person who has been wounded and hurt. I used to get people reminded me that I will never amount to anything. I'm always crying. I'm always depressed. I'm miserable. They played on my vulnerabilities, my visible vulnerabilities, and tried to use it in a way to bring me further down. But the funny thing is, those same people had so much issues They were able to look at my issues, but not able to look at their own. And today I still encounter people like that that will try and, look on my issues and or my failings and think that they are better than me. Now, one of the things that doesn't help any survivor of abuse is for you to play on their weak points. Instead of playing on their weak points, their weaknesses, their failings, how about helping them? How about supporting them? How about finding out information to help them to be able to overcome their weaknesses? How about that? That is a first step. That is called being helpful. I do not personally like it when I see women and men that I know who have been through abuse suffering in this way, and I don't like hearing about it either, because if we were to look at other people's lives, they may think they're all perfect on the outside, but actually they're not. So instead of doing these things, think about that person. They're hurting, they are broken by their experience, and you know what helps is to have somebody who's championing you, walking alongside you and saying, you know what, I may not understand why you behave the way you do, but instead of judging you, I'm going to show you compassion. And I think that is powerful in itself. Now, whatever weakness that person has, maybe they're always depressed. Maybe they suffer from anxiety. You can get help. You can go onto the internet and find help for them. Maybe support them in going to their GP and getting professional advice, help to to help them to get on the right track. Or there's helplines out there, that can advise you on how to support a friend or a family member who has got these issues. Now, I know that there is a lot of resources out here, but the practical help on the ground to walk alongside survivors of abuse is quite thin. And that's something that you maybe can step in and do by just supporting in different areas. But in the first instance, I would always say try and show empathy instead of judging. Be compassionate. These experiences that survivors of abuse have, whether it could be sexual, physical, emotional, it could be any of these. It's not their fault. They never asked to be put in these situations. Unfortunately, it's happened to them. So now they're trying to mentally, emotionally, and spiritually process that, in whatever way. And it might not be a good way, but, they're trying to process that in whatever way. So instead of doing that, try and encourage them and support and help them. That is what helped me. I made so many mistakes with people on my journey to recovery, because I don't trust a lot of people, and I don't feel anywhere about saying that. I keep my circle very, very small. I have very few friends. I have acquaintances. I know that I portion up people how I see it. There are acquaintances, colleagues, those people I would never share my experiences with. And now, even with certain friends I wouldn't share experiences with. I have a few close people that I do that with, because I have learned over the years, through my vulnerability, I'm quite an emotional person and I will outpour. A lot of people use that to try and bring me down. So I keep my circle very, very, very small. And I choose what I put out there on the internet, in my books, what I choose to share. And I'm able to protect myself. And a lot of survivors are not able to do that. So if you are somebody that has somebody like that in your life, be their protection. Help them to build that boundary, and and just love them, show compassion to them. Don't pick on their failings or weaknesses. Okay, so rejecting a person who's been through abuse. Now, there are many reasons why people do this. Denial, shock, failure to kind of understand, a lack of education and awareness in understanding how sexual abuse actually really impacts and affects lives in the aftermath. Now, I spoke out about my experience at 13 years old, and I found I was rejected and ostracized from my family. It was made very clear to me that I am the problem. I am the person who is the problem, because my father wasn't the problem. You know, in fact, he was the adult who abused his position, and rather than him having to, you know, be dealt with, I was the person that ended up living in government care, ostracized from my family. Now, yeah, my mum, my relatives, you know, they visited from time to time. She visited from time to time, but we never had a relationship because of that. And also, as well, there were other things that were going on in the background of my family. Now, I felt totally devastated by the rejection. I felt that my relationship with my natural mother depended on me living a lie. And rather than living a lie, I chose to completely cut off. Now, a lot of people don't find that easy to do. I'm not saying it was easy for me to do. I cried a lot of tears about being rejected. I cried a lot of tears at the injustice of speaking out about something that was devastating to me and being totally rejected and ostracized from my family. But in the long run, I do not regret ever doing that. I have dealt with a lot of people who have been through abuse who are totally shunned by their family. This is what caused me to set up Daughter Rise, because there are so many of us out there who, through no fault of our own, who have been rejected by our families. It's unfair. It is a shame, but you know. One thing I would say to you, if you have somebody in your family who has come to you, or a friend that's come to you, I know it's hurtful to hear, and I know that denial can make people do things or react in so many different ways, but if you can, don't reject them, you know, don't ostracize them, cut them out, cast them out, completely block them from your life, because they have shared something with you that you might find unbelievable. It's important to understand, and this is from national statistics, this is not a fairy tale that's pulled out of the sky. 90%, 90% of childhood sexual abuse is committed by someone the child knows, loves, and trusts. Now, a lot of the time we look on the outward appearance of somebody and think, because this person's a pastor, because this person looks decent, because this person wears certain clothes or has money or status or carries themselves or is articulate in a certain way, they are incapable of being a predator, a paedophile, a child abuser. This is the biggest misconception, the biggest weapon that these people have in their arsenal, besides secrecy, to commit the crimes that they have done. Now, as I've always said, there is always some kind of psychological, emotional evidence of somebody that has been through sexual abuse. There may not always be physical injuries. That is another thing that seems to be on the side of people that commit this crime. But it is important, like I said, to listen to this person, listen to what they have had to say. You know, don't reject them, you know, because what they're looking for is actually, in their pain, somebody to love them, somebody to walk alongside them. All these things that I've talked about, you know, it's about them trying to find a way of communicating with you their pain, their experience that has had a profound, long-lasting effect on their life. You know, rejection and being ostracized by my mother especially had an effect on me for, I would say, for at least 15 years. And it has taken time to get over it, time to come to terms with. But in essence, for me, I never regretted ever speaking out, because it was about my survival. And trying to listen helps them to be able to know that you care about them. You know, don't reject them. Everybody has different experiences in life. So these 5 things I think it's important for you to understand. Do not blame. Do not minimalize. Listen. Don't trivialize their situation. Listening really does help the person that has been through it. you know, you should be over it by now, you know, telling the person you should be over it by now is an ignorant statement to make. I'm sorry, it is, because how does anybody measure with people's personalities, the way they respond to trauma? How do you measure from looking at somebody how long it will take them to recover or heal from it? You know, don't remind them of their weaknesses, their failings. Maybe they do have a lot of relationships. Maybe they do struggle with setting boundaries. Maybe they have a problem with depression. You know, they know that. Survivors who've been through abuse know their issues, they know their problems. You know, so you don't have to remind them about it. Show compassion, show empathy. Try and support in a different way. Put it in action. And also as well, don't reject them for something that was outside of their control. It may be hard for you to hear. It might cause you to be shocked. This person you know or know of, you know, being accused of such thing. But listen to what they are saying, and, you know, try and support them. Maybe they're coming to you for support now to take it forward, go to the police or to find help. I think it's really important for you to get an insight into this, because too many people that I am, you know, had the privilege and honour of being able to listen to, of being able to, you know, support, have these issues within their family circles, within friendships. And I just want to convey that to you. I want to just bring you some of these issues that they're experiencing and ask you to try and help to support them. So that is all I wanted to say to you for today. Please check out my website, www.daughterarise.org.uk. On there you can find different information around what we offer to support survivors of sexual abuse. And we do also work with people who have been through emotional and physical abuse as well, whether that's in relationships or in situations or experiences they've had as a child. So please check out what we offer on the website. Be sure as well to check out my Hope in the Future blog. So if you go to the My Blog tab at the top of the page, you will see all my blog posts that I have done over the last year and a half. And I write these blogs from survivors' experience, some of the challenges I've had in my own journey, and also as well things that you may be able to take from it to support people who have been through sexual abuse. And also as well, if you have been through sexual abuse, you might find the blogs helpful on some challenges that you might be facing. Be sure as well to check out all my other videos on this channel. I talk about things from a survivor's perspective, to raise awareness, to kind of foster hope. Also as well, things that I come across in the news, I give my commentary, my view on things to do around abuse. And in the left and right hand corner, you will see the round symbol for Daughter Arise. That is to subscribe. So please subscribe to this channel if you think that it will help you or help other people, and be sure to share it as well. And in the other corner is another video maybe that you have not seen, so be sure to check that out. So just remember to try and be somebody who is a help, not a hindrance to somebody who is going through trauma, and be supportive if you can. Okay, until next time, take care.